There is a common fan theory that the plot of Mass Effect 5 could be us, the protagonist, looking for Shepard. So I wanted to explore this theory. And I think this is an interesting theory to explore, because I do think that realistically, BioWare will have to fill in gaps after the ending of Mass Effect 3. They will have to establish something, from the fate of Shepard to the fate of the galaxy. These are major questions we've had unanswered for a very long time, and if the next game takes place in the timeline of the original trilogy, which I think is a definite possibility, they will have to establish what happened and how the galaxy moved forward. With Andromeda, we were so far removed from the original trilogy that no questions needed to be answered, and I don't think BioWare will do that again. So with that in mind, let's break down this theory. The most important part of this theory is that it can only even begin to work if the Destroy ending is canonized. Destroy is the only ending where Shepard can survive. And will BioWare actually canonize an ending? I genuinely have no idea at this point, but let's break down this theory as if BioWare decided to make Destroy canon and make Shepard survive. In my previous video, I went over the stats that BioWare released regarding the endings for Mass Effect 3, and less than half of the player base even chose Destroy, and even less than that would have gotten Shepard's breath. This is important to note because in the original release of the game, or more accurately the extended cut release, Shepard's breath was possible, but it was even harder than the ending in Mass Effect Legendary Edition to get, and I think that's important to remember because there is a lot of original fans who didn't even get that ending. But let's entertain the idea of a canonized Destroy ending so that we can explore this theory more. First off, if we are hunting for Shepard, who is we? Would we play as Liara? Would we play as Ryder? Would we play as a new character? Since obviously if we are looking for Shepard, we wouldn't be playing as Shepard. Realistically, I don't think BioWare would have us play as Liara. She is too established as her own independent character throughout the series, and I personally think playing as her would be a bit jarring. It would remove character creation, any possibility of playing as other races, and would really be against the BioWare formula of establishing your own protagonist. Maybe if it was during a small limited sequence like when we played as Joker in Mass Effect 2, but not for an entire game. Her personality, her looks, and her past is already established. So playing as her would be limiting in dialogue and narrative choice and would ultimately limit the role-playing experience. Maybe we play as Ryder working with Liara to look for Shepard. I think that this would make a little bit more sense than playing as Liara, but what would that even look like? And more importantly, what would that mean for the timeline? Why would Ryder stop their Pathfinder duties to help Liara look for Shepard? And why would Liara, who is extremely capable with unlimited knowledge and resources at her fingertips, even need Ryder? We'd also have to assume that if this was the case, then this would mean that Liara made the 633-year time skip to Andromeda, because there is no realistic way for Ryder to return to the Milky Way galaxy without it being set at least 633 years into the future following the initiative's launch. Even if Ryder left for the Milky Way galaxy at the end of the Andromeda storyline to help Liara, they would still be put in the future of the Milky Way timeline. So there's no way for Ryder to travel back to the original trilogy timeline, since it is already established that Ryder was in cryosleep between 2185 and 2819. So the only way for this version of this theory to work would be if Liara went to Andromeda and the next game would take place in the Andromeda timeline. So if Ryder was the one helping Liara search for Shepard, that wouldn't really make sense timeline-wise because Shepard would have to have gone to Andromeda as well. And if Liara is looking for Shepard, that would have meant that they wouldn't have gone together, or else why would Liara need to search for Shepard in the first place? And I just don't see a reason to send Shepard to the Andromeda timeline. Shepard's ties and all of the story threads are in the Milky Way galaxy, and those are unfinished story threads. We don't know what happened to the Krogan, the Geth, the Quarians, etc. There is no reason to send Shepard to Andromeda when there is still so much unresolved in the Milky Way. So this version of the theory doesn't make sense to me either. So that leaves the possible scenario of a new character looking for Shepard. And to be honest, I just don't see BioWare making a game revolve around nostalgia and the entire storyline revolve around Shepard if they don't bring Shepard back. But with this hunting for Shepard theory, I think a new character as the protagonist would be the most likely scenario but there is a ton of questions that BioWare would have to answer as to why our new protagonist was so interested in finding Shepard in the first place. So if we are looking for Shepard, would this have to be immediately following the ending of Mass Effect 3? Shepard's breath implied Shepard is alive, and the devs did confirm this. But Shepard had to have been close to dying here. They would have had to have been thrown around after taking the blast from the catalyst face first. How would Shepard have lived without immediate help? When Shepard is taking this breath, the Normandy is already gone. So who would have saved Shepard? And if someone did help Shepard following that breath, who? What survivors would have been near to help? And maybe the Alliance helped Shepard, but why would they have kept Liara from Shepard? There's a lot of questions here, and I know that there are a lot of theories about a cryo-frozen Shepard or a clone Shepard, etc. But ultimately, I don't see them retelling essentially the same story of Shepard dying, someone taking Shepard to heal them, and then Liara desperately searching for Shepard, which is essentially the plot for the comic leading up to Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 2. We also have to wonder where Liara actually is. There are 3 moons, and Earth does not have 3 moons. So this can't be where Shepard would have woken up following the blast of the Citadel, which would have either been the remains of the Citadel or Earth. I did wonder if this planet was Alchera, but we actually already get Shepard's helmet from their Mass Effect 2 death. So if this was Alchera, this being Shepard's helmet doesn't make sense because Shepard's helmet isn't here anymore. And this planet being Alchera doesn't necessarily work because Alchera's atmosphere is made up of ammonia and methane, and Liara isn't wearing a mask. So this is possibly a new planet, but why would an N7 helmet be here? So obviously there are a ton of questions here. So let's reanalyze the trailer with all of these questions in mind, since it is the only teaser BioWare has released that has a direct connection to Shepard. First, we see what looks like a ship traveling to this snowy planet, implying Liara obviously traveled here, and she's walking along the surface of a Reaper. So we know this is set in the Milky Way galaxy, or at least we can assume that the Reapers didn't leave the Milky Way. The weather here is notably different than where Shepard would have been at the end of Mass Effect 3, so clearly this is a different planet. But I will say that this planet did also make me think of the planet from the new Citadel art that kind of looks like it could be snowy, and we know that the Citadel is able to be moved. It's far-fetched, but who knows. So Liara is walking up the dead Reaper to go and find this N7 helmet. It's important to note that she is alone, and it seems like this helmet is on top of the Reaper, but this helmet that she finds is obviously the most important part of the trailer. We don't actually know of many N7s to begin with. I think we know of 7 from the current canon, and only 5 that we've even interacted with. And out of those 5, 4 are dead. 3 if your Shepard lived. So it's interesting that this trailer showed an N7 helmet, because the number of connections that we have as the player would be very limited. Now, there is no way BioWare would show us an N7 helmet being found by Liara and have it be the helmet of another N7, in my opinion. It's clear that this teaser is intended to be for established fans, fans who would recognize Liara, and fans who would be connected to that N7 helmet. That is absolutely intended to remind us of Shepard. Going back to the theory, this scene here is the biggest clue into what the context of the scene actually is. When Liara picks up the N7 helmet, she looks at it and then she smiles. She's either reminiscing or remembering Shepard. This entire scene also seems peaceful. Liara looks like she is happy about finding this helmet and not in an urgent, I found something we need to find Shepard with, but more of a, this is a treasure that reminds me of a better time. The next part of this is Liara looking at the people she is traveling with. They're not looking at her, and they're not looking at the helmet with her. If this was urgent, wouldn't they be alongside her celebrating this find? To me, this gives more of an impression of giving her privacy to have her own moment with her own memories. Obviously, part of this is also BioWare not wanting to show who Liara is with, but this is how I interpret this scene. So no, I don't really think that there's any indication that Liara is actively looking for Shepard from any clues we've been given so far, but that's just my interpretation. It's also important to remember that this is a teaser. This is intended to evoke emotions and convey a concept and isn't a direct scene from the game. The Mass Effect team is in early production and they just recently hired their lead narrative designer last year. So things could change. Whatever the story they're telling is probably mapped out by now, But that doesn't mean all the details in this teaser will carry over to the final game. Teasers like concept art are intended to get us excited and pull us back into this world, and that's exactly what this did. So yes, speculation this early probably doesn't mean a ton, but it is a lot of fun. But ultimately, take everything with a grain of salt. We know pretty much next to nothing at this point, and until Dragon Age Dreadwolf has its own marketing circuit and actual release, we probably won't get much for Mass Effect 5. Maybe we'll finally hear about that rumored show, but I don't expect anything else from the next Mass Effect until N7 Day in November. It's gonna be a long wait. And it'll be interesting to see what BioWare actually continues to release as teasers. BioWare is going to have to be extremely careful with their marketing for Mass Effect 5. Andromeda used a lot of N7 Shepard iconography in their marketing, and this set fan expectations very high. It also meant that Andromeda used the nostalgia of Shepard as a way to bring back fans, which in a way makes sense, but when marketing an N7 so prominently in the trailers, and then having that N7 not be Shepard, but also having them die in the first 15 minutes of the game was ultimately a bad idea in my opinion. Andromeda also has that extremely emotional send-off where Jennifer Hale is voicing female Commander Shepard. They hit all the nostalgia beats, and we're seeing nostalgia again so far for the marketing of the next game. Pretty much everything we've been shown has been mostly revolving around the original trilogy. The concept art, the audio, Liara. So it's going to be interesting watching the teasers as we get closer to the game. We've seen one piece of marketing tied to Shepard, but it's a pretty big piece of Shepard. Seeing the iconic N7 helmet brought back a lot of nostalgia and excitement for fans. And if Shepard is actually returning, I'll expect to see more Shepard-related iconography, but if Shepard is not returning, they need to move away from using Shepard as a selling point to not repeat the mistakes of the past. If we do get a new N7 as our protagonist, then using N7 as a marketing device makes sense, but they will have to make it obvious that it isn't Shepard. Maybe change the colors, maybe give them their own distinguishable armor, something that says, hey, we aren't bringing back Shepard and we want people to know going in what to expect. It's going to be hard whatever they decide to do. There are very high expectations for this game. Anyways, what do you think about this theory? Would you enjoy a game centered around finding Shepard? Would you enjoy playing as Liara? What about playing as Ryder again? And how do you interpret the trailer? Let me know in the comments and thank you for watching.